This is the Ethanol Report, the industry podcast from the Renewable Fuels Association since 2008. I'm Cindy Zimmerman. Well, ethanol supporters once again saw Lucy snatch the football away from them this past week as legislation to ensure year-round availability of E15 was removed at the last minute from consideration in the House of Representatives, alongside other legislation, including the Farm Bill. Ethanol industry champion and ranking member of the House Agriculture Committee, Angie Craig, expressed her frustration on the House floor late Wednesday night.
I have created a vision of Lucy with the football so many times on this topic of E15 that I don't even know how to describe it anymore. And the fact that tonight, my friends on the other side of the aisle somehow negotiated to have E15 taken off the table, to me, it's just unbelievable. You destroy all the export markets in our country, and now you refuse to move forward in pushing for those new domestic markets. And look, I know there's probably some deal cut on the side or a gentleman's agreement or whatever, but we're going to be back here in 2 weeks. There's going to be a lot of procedural movement on this thing. And I'm telling you tonight, I do not believe that we will see a vote on E15 come to this House floor. That standing down on E15 was walking away from our family farmers. We will never stand down.
The Renewable Fuels Association was holding a board meeting in Des Moines as members watched the chaotic proceedings unfold by live stream. I'm speaking now with RFA President and CEO Geoff Cooper to try and break down what exactly happened this past week in Congress. We thought we were going to finally get a vote on it, and something happened. Geoff, can you please explain, to the best of your ability, what happened in Congress this week?
Well, Cindy, I'm not even sure what to say here or where to begin. I mean, we're still sort of at a loss for words, but I think the short answer is House leadership caved in again on E15 and bent to the demands of a very small group of very vocal opponents of renewable fuels, and kicked the can yet again on an E15 vote that had been promised to us and had been promised to many members of the House that this was going to happen this week. And here we are at the end of the week, and it didn't happen. And so now we've got, like I said, the can has been kicked yet again, and we've got another promise of a vote on the E15 package on May 13th. So, we again, I think what we witnessed this week was a total breakdown, complete dysfunction. And again, I can't even begin to describe the level of frustration, the level of outrage, and just the level of disappointment that we are hearing from our membership, from our farmer friends, and frankly, any Americans that are following this process. It just makes you shake your head. I don't know what else to say. It's just incredibly frustrating for us. And we've seen this movie before, where leadership makes a promise that E15 legislation is going to get a vote, and then the rug gets pulled on us at the last minute. And they're not just pulling the rug on farmers and ethanol producers and fuel retailers. They're pulling the rug on consumers who want lower cost fuel. And they're also, very importantly, pulling the rug on the members of Congress who have been fighting so hard on our behalf to get this done. They were given a commitment. They're doing their job. They're doing everything they can. But all the voter back home is going to see is that this isn't getting done. And that's just, again, incredibly frustrating, and disenchanting, frankly, for those of us who are relying on Congress to get a very simple piece of legislation across the goal line that would allow, it wouldn't mandate, it would allow retail gas stations to offer a lower cost fuel to consumers at a time when they really need access to that lower cost product.
And you had, before this vote that was promised, you had dozens of groups come out and say that they were in favor of this, including API and, all of the ag groups and all of the biofuels groups, and especially because gas prices are so high now. But
Yep.
it seems like the real sticking point has become what is in that bill for the refiners, how it would impact the small refinery exemptions.
Yeah.
That wasn't in the initial bill, was it?
It wasn't. It was not part of the legislation that, again, was on the precipice of passage back in December of 2024. This time around, the legislative language that was being considered included year-round E15, but it also includes some reform to the small refinery exemption program under the RFS. And again, those reform provisions have been, you know, carefully negotiated between our industry and the oil industry, fuel retailers, the farm groups. They are broadly supported by in a bipartisan nature by many members of Congress. But you've got this small group of mid-sized refiners and their friends in Congress are taking a hard line on this, and they've that's been enough to blow this thing up. Again, you look at the margins in the House today, and the Republicans have a very narrow margin, 4 or 5 votes, and so all it takes is a group of 3 or 4 hardliners to get together and they can throw a wrench in the whole thing. We saw that back in January. We were told, hey, we've got a plan to figure this out and a path forward, and we're going to get this done at the next available opportunity. And sure enough, the same thing happened again, where that small group of members of Congress from districts that have a mid-sized refining company operating there were able to shut this thing down. And it's baffling to us that when we've got a coalition that represents 85% of the oil refining industry, 100% of the fuel retail sector, 100% of agriculture, all of the ethanol industry, all the biofuels folks, you got everybody supporting this, and yet you've got this small group of refiners. Many of these companies, by the way, are foreign owned, and they're able to derail the whole thing. It's just it's bizarre and frankly absurd to us that they're able to make a mess of this whole thing.
But what came out that I had not heard until this week was that addition of the small refinery exemption, that change in the RFS, added a cost to that bill that wasn't there before. And
Well,
that's what
yeah, and
they
that
seemed
was
to latch on to, was this was going to cost $1 billion over 10 years or something.
well, and that was part of the sausage making process this week. That was a surprise. When the Rules Committee asked the Congressional Budget Office for a budget score on this E15 and SRE reform proposal, CBO came back with an analysis that no one has seen, hasn't been shared publicly, hasn't even been shared with many members of Congress. And CBO said, this, if you vote this through, it's going to increase federal spending, by the only estimate that they put out public was a single digit billions of dollars increase in federal spending. We have no idea what assumptions they used to get there. It's completely ridiculous. When this E15 provision was scored by CBO in the past without the SRE reform stuff, they said it would generate a $4 to $6 billion savings to the government. But because it came back this time with a positive score, meaning, it would, in their view, increase federal spending. The Rules Committee said, well, we can't allow this amendment to move forward. So that's the juncture at which, our friends in Congress got back together with leadership and said, hey, if this thing can't go as an amendment to the Farm Bill, we got to find another way. And that's when it got split off from the Farm Bill. And a commitment was made that this E15 provision will get a vote as a standalone measure on the House floor in parallel with the Farm Bill. And once those two votes are done, Those two pieces will be merged back together as we send it over to the Senate. So that was the plan. Wednesday morning, and by Wednesday evening, the wheels had completely fallen off. And it was clear that they were going to allow the Farm Bill to move ahead to a vote, but not the E15 provision. And, they were going to kick the can on that. So that's where we're at today. And again, we've been promised you're going to get a vote on the E15 and SRE reform language on May 13th. But I got to tell you, we've heard this before, and there's a lot of skepticism. There's a lot of distrust and a lot of disenchantment in our industry and amongst farmers, and frankly amongst the members of Congress who have been leading this effort. It's hard to put much stock in these commitments and promises that we're hearing from House leadership when time and time again they've reneged on those commitments. So, um, we hope that this thing gets a vote on May 13th. We know it has the votes to pass, and frankly, that's why uh, that small group of opponents pulled out all the stops to try and shut down the rule that would even allow debate and a vote on DHS funding and the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act and all these other priorities that moved through the House this week. They knew that was their last ditch effort to try and derail a vote on the E15 legislation. So that's where we're at, and we're not giving up. We're not backing down. And in fact, I think people are more motivated than ever uh, to stay vocal, stay loud, stay in front of Congress on this. Farmers, fuel retailers, oil refiners, ethanol producers, and frankly, anybody who wants lower gas prices is, we need to continue demanding action and ensuring that this vote on year-round E15 happens on May 13th and is not further delayed.
So the football is once again teed up, Charlie Brown.
Yeah,
So so what you're saying is we're still not going to give up. There's still a chance that the football's still there. You have to try and kick it.
that's
That's the
exactly
goal.
right, and that's the metaphor that a lot of people are using, including many of our friends in Congress. Is man, how many times are we going to do this? How many times are we going to fall for this? The football's sitting there, and we're on the approach to kick the field goal. And how many times have we seen that football pulled up at the last second by Lucy? So, it is again. I don't even know how to describe it. I've used about all the adjectives I can to characterize just how frustrating and disappointing this whole thing is. But we're not going to quit. There is no quit in this industry, no quit in our farmer friends, and we're not going away.
So all your message to your members is keep calling their members of Congress.
Absolutely. And our members have been extremely active over the last month or so, well, longer than that, but really the last several weeks, text messages, emails, phone calls. We've had some of our members out in DC doing meetings. That effort is only going to intensify and continue to ramp up until this thing finally gets done.
Thank you very much, Geoff. Anyone who'd like more information about E15 policy, and especially how 15% ethanol blended fuel saves money at the pump, and much, much more, all of it can be found on the RFA website, which is ethanolrfa.org. And that's it for this edition of the Ethanol Report. Thanks for listening.